Morena e wahinima. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to you all, and thank you for joining us today for this first collaboration with Global Women and this event, Female Entrepreneurs Breaking the Mould. And as you can see, we've assembled a rock star group of women to talk to you about this, share this really important topic for all of us in this crazy world that we live in. So some of the people don't need any introduction. They're legends in New Zealand business world, but just briefly, panel today is Vicki Saunders, globally, Bievre, the founder of Beany, Ranjna Patel, co-founder of Nivas Health and the founder of Gandhi, Nivas, and Cecilia Robinson, serial entrepreneur, co-founder of OP Link, My Food Bag, and now Tend Health. The format for today is we're going to try and run to a tight hour. I'm going to invite each of the panelists, all of whom are dear friends to me, so it's possible I'll go off piece once I get to the questions, but we'll start with each of them addressing us for about 5 minutes on this topic, whatever they want to say around this topic of entrepreneurs breaking the mold, a little of their own story, a little of their learnings, a little of what they're doing now. And then I will facilitate questions with the panel. And then at the end, there'll be opportunity for people to ask questions. So please post your questions in the Q&A box. And we will select as many as we've got time to ask. It seemed to be a common theme for the 257 people we've got on this call at the moment. And then at the end, we'll just wrap up and I'll ask each of the panelists to give their best advice for female entrepreneurs. So, goddess, incredibly entrepreneurial person, Vicki Saunders, the floor is yours, virtually.
Thank you so much. Morena, everyone. Very nice to meet you virtually. I'm thrilled to be here with this amazing group of awesome women. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm the founder of SheEO. And for those of you who don't know about the model, it's a new way of funding and supporting women entrepreneurs who are working on the world's to-do list. And that is our phrase for the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We have one of our amazing ventures here, Sue. We call you Sue Beany, Sue from Beany. And we have lots of other New Zealand-based ventures. We have all these cards for the range of ventures. So you might know Chia Sisters, you may know Guardian Angel Security, the Hello Cup, Pure Peony, a really amazing group of ventures. And we just announced our semi-finalists for this year's round today. And of the 13 semi-finalists, 7 are Wahine Maori or women of color, which we're very excited about. Diversity is absolutely critical to the model at SheEO. And we are looking for ventures who have new approaches to business, who are working on the critical issues of our time. And the way that it works is women contribute $92 a month or $1,100 a year as activators, and they activate their capital and their networks and their expertise. Imagine having this crew on the call here to help you build your business. This is what it's like at SheEO. Everybody can ask for help as an entrepreneur or a woman in business or a woman who is just out there wanting to be a change agent in the world. And we share all of our resources together to transform systems. So this model started in Canada, and the reason we're in New Zealand is very much because of the goddess, TG, who saw me speak at an event and somehow said to me, you have to come to New Zealand. If this is going to expand, it has to come to New Zealand first. So of course we went to the closest place we could find after North America, which was New Zealand, which is our third country, which we're so excited about. And one of the things that we've witnessed, you have the highest number of activators per population of any other country that we've been to, which is the most radically generous country that we're in, which we're extremely excited about. And I think just a couple of things that I want to say about our model that's quite different. One is that we loan out money to women entrepreneurs on their own terms. One of the big challenges in the world right now is there's so many rules attached to money, how you spend it, what kind of business you need to build. And it's, you know, this whole model about go big or go home. At SheEO, we want you to be sustainable, carbon neutral, running your business with very progressive policies. And so we're looking for new innovations, not just about what people are doing with their business, but how they're doing business. And so the money that you get as a loan from SheEO, it's a 5-year, 0% interest loan. has no strings attached to how you spend it. We vote for you based on how you want to spend it. And so it's quite different from that perspective. And we do that to create as much freedom as possible so that you can run a business on your own terms and show us how different that can be. I think the last piece that is one of the favorites of a lot of activators is that everybody gets one vote. We don't have some expert panel deciding of who's going to have the greatest market potential. Everyone who contributes capital gets to vote. And so power is distributed very broadly and also very evenly. So an 11-year-old activator in our network has the same power as Theresa. How about that? Okay, back to you, T.
Thanks so much, Vicki. We'll hear more about that later. But now over to Sue Bievre, CEO and founder of Beany. Sue.
Thanks, Theresa, and hi, everybody. It's such a thrill to be here today. So my name is actually Sue Bievre, but I seem to be now known as Sue Beany. I'm the founder of Beany. I just want to talk very briefly about what we do, why we do it, and also some of our capital raising adventures and how SheEO saved our bacon in 2019. So what we do is we provide accounting services for small business owners in New Zealand, although we plan to go to Australia, Canada, and UK as well. We're not competing with Xero, we're competing with other accountants like Findex or Deloitte. And the reason why we do it is I started my first business when I was 28, and Beany is my 10th startup. And I know a lot about the pain for small business owners. I know how incredibly hard it is to be a small business owner. And so what I wanted to do was to provide really good real-time financial information to small business owners that is relevant to them, and to help them translate that information into action in their businesses. So I've done 10 businesses for myself, but I've also been on the other side of the fence because I am a chartered accountant and I've been in the profession. And so I could see sort of what the supply side of the equation looked like. And in around 2013, technology suddenly caught up with everything that I wanted to do for small business. And I could use technology to deliver this very fast, efficient feedback loop of financial information for small business owners. So we started in 2014. Jump ahead to 2018, we've spent a shed load on software development. We've got some really cool tech running in the background. We've got around about 1,000 clients. We've got around $2 million worth of turnover. And we really needed some cash to accelerate our growth and to become a global business. That's what I wanted to do, bring our service to small business owners everywhere, not just in New Zealand. Went to the capital markets, employed a capital raising expert, asked them especially for female investment. And I was presented with a list of 20 names, all of which were men, all of whom passed. And it was devastating because the company was running out of money. I was beginning to really panic, and I started to call other female innovators, entrepreneurs, and people working in the capital markets to find out how could I crack this nut. And I ended up talking to Kirsty Reynolds, who was a legend and a very keen SheEO supporter. And she said, go enter the SheEO competition, become a venture. So I was actually quite broken by the end of 2018, but I sort of staggered my way in, put in an entry, became a venture finalist, and still vividly remember standing up on the stage at SheEO in April 2019 and sort of telling my story. And Vicki will remember, she advised me, she said, Sue, warn them first, you're going to cry. So I did, I stood up and said, I'm probably going to cry. But stood up and asked for the money that I needed. I just literally stood up and said, I want 1.5 million to do what I want to do. And it was, like even saying it now, I can feel the hairs go up on the back of my neck because that call was immediately answered. And by the end of that day, thank you, Theresa Gattung, I had enough money to actually sort of build the foundation of a cap raise. And it was just so important that I had that support at that moment in this business. Theresa Gattung and Kirsty Reynolds accompanied me into the Ice House head office and basically rolled Robbie Paul over into becoming the lead investor, and we closed out a round of 1.5 million in August 2019. Without a shadow of a doubt, I can say this honestly, my hand on my heart, without SheEO, that would not have happened. And instead of now being sort of poised to expand globally, we would have had to sort of shrink back into a kind of a small regional accounting business. And so that's the difference that SheEO has made for us, all the difference. And just to close this out, you know, I say this and it sounds like a cliche, but it really isn't. You know, I found my people. SheEO are my people. So thank you, Vicki. Thank you, Theresa. That's it.
Thank you, Sue Beany. Okay, Well, many of you won't have heard of Beany, so this will all be new. So I'm sure you'll have questions for Sue later. But now, Visionary Leader of the Year a couple of years ago, absolute role model and rock star for women throughout New Zealand. I'd like to hand over the virtual floor to my dear friend Ranjna Patel.
Thank you, Theresa. Morena, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. When I look at others like Cecilia and Sue and Theresa, they've been in several jobs. I'm afraid I had one job after school and then married and went into business, and I've been there for now 43 years. So not a serial entrepreneur, but when you're in business, I take a different attitude to entrepreneur. We as women see gaps and we fill them. And especially when it relates to community. I think we have that soft touch. So starting in South Auckland in Otara in 1977, we bought a business. We had to borrow, plus even the legal fees we had to borrow. And with that came a business that was open 9 to 12 and 3 to 5. That wasn't going to pay our interest. That wasn't going to pay back our mortgage. So we had to change what the community needed. And in South Auckland, putting bread on the table was far more important than actually going to see the doctor for preventative medicine. So just, flipping our model, not doctor-centric, but patient-centric. And I think that's an ethos and a mantra that we've carried right through our business. Then I started about 12 years ago joining a whole lot of NGO boards where you're an advisor for your community. And one of them was New Zealand Police at national level as well as at counties Manukau level. And in the year 12 and 13, 4 out of 40 women killed were Indian, which is 29% when our population was 3%. And so the commissioner at that time said, there's something wrong in your community and you're an advisory board. Now and this is another thing I think women do really well. When you see something you don't understand, you don't fob it off and you don't pretend you know it all. You actually try to find the root of what it is that you're trying to deal with. So I went to MIT to understand domestic violence, because if you haven't been in that space, you have no comprehension of it. And just understanding and then talking to the people that work on the ground was where the answers and solutions came to. On December 1st, 2014, we opened our first home in Otahu. The same day, the Owen Glenn report came out at a cost of hundreds of thousands of dollars, saying the same thing, that men have to transform. They are the perpetrators in this situation, and we have to provide them help. Because, sadly to say, that nearly 95% of women take the men back. And if we do not give them any tools, they are not going to change, and it's going to get worse. We've had some amazing results from Gandhi Nivas. The first year, 93% did not reoffend. But with my hand on my heart, I couldn't shout from rooftops, because 12 months is not change behaviour. And this is something women do well too. We may do quite a bit, but we know when we can shout from the rooftops. As Sue said, she knew what she wanted. And when she did have to shout from the rooftops, that I do remember at the forum, you do get answers. And so we had evaluation from Massey, and we launched it. Thank you, Theresa, for being there in Parliament. And you had all the ministers and all the CEs saying, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. But do you think you can make them move? And this is where we need a woman group of people, our community. Sue said, you need to find that. And with Theresa, we did manage to break a few barriers in saying what it is we're trying to do. And our 5-year evaluation actually showed that we had nearly 60% of men not reoffend, even those that had 20 to 30 intervention from mainstream. Now, my point in being entrepreneur isn't really entrepreneur. We actually see a gap and we adapt We do break the mold in many cases when we want to do things. We've had to do that in health, and that's why we've grown. We made it all the person-centric. And so in a service industry, I think that's very, very important. Mainstream sometimes does not allow us to do what's required by the patient or the perpetrator in the other case. So I'm not a serial entrepreneur. I just see gaps and I try to change where I can.
Thank you, Ranjna. I'm going to ask you a few more questions, and you're all so modest. You were 500 people stood up and clapped when you were named Visionary Leader of the Year. I saw it. I was there. You're way too modest. But now I wish to introduce my business partner and wonderful friend, and the woman I believe is the most talented entrepreneur of her generation, Cecilia Robinson.
Wow, thanks, PG. That's a that's a lovely statement and truly humbling. And wow, I don't actually know how to respond to that, but thank you. I just morena to everyone here. Thank you all for participating in these times as well. I know that we might be feeling a little bit shaken this week, so I just wanted to do a bit of a check-in to make sure that people are feeling okay. It's been a bit of a shock to the system for most people going into Wednesday, and just want to remind ourselves to be kind to ourselves. I think in these times it's quite easy to feel like we're not enough and that we have to do everything and be everything to absolutely everyone, and just a reminder that we can't. That's also a side note to myself, but just a reminder this morning that it is feeling a bit tough in New Zealand, and making sure that we take care of ourselves as a priority. So, and also thank you to my wider panel. It's always amazing to hear such inspirational women speaking, and I always feel incredibly privileged to be in a community of such amazing women. So Theresa has been a friend of mine for a decade now, which is incredible, and we've walked this pathway together. So. And if you don't know me, my name's Cecilia Robinson. As Theresa initially said, my background is in serial entrepreneurship. I'm not sure if I actually like that term, but I guess it's true to a certain degree. We have started OPLink in education, My Food Bag in food, and our latest innovation is Tender Healthcare. So it's been an incredible journey to date. I've walked it alongside some amazing people. It's all about team at the end of the day, alongside Theresa and Lee Mathias and my husband, who is incredible. So what about that? What about our journey? So when I think back on those different industries, because people will say, you know, how do you know going from education to food and from food into healthcare, you know, what do you know about each sector? Well, I guess the truth is that I'm a university dropout, and I don't have an education to be preaching about education, food or healthcare, but it's been a journey about customers for us and about finding the most appropriate, most intimate, most you know, transformational customer experience. And so when I look back at OPLink, it was all about enabling people to have cost-effective and affordable childcare in their home. And for My Food Bag, you know, we wanted to answer the question, what's for dinner tonight? And for 10, it's really about, with 10, it's about empowering healthcare. So we've been able to transform sectors. Our latest venture into healthcare has been something that we've been working on for about 18 months. We're not a response to COVID, and I kind of want to keep reiterating that because we've been working for such a long time on the project that we're working on, and it's been an intersection between entrepreneurs, technologists, clinicians. You know, it's been a huge focus to bring everybody together into the table. And as part of that, I've got the amazing Theresa Gattung by our side again. And some of you might also know Dr. Lee Mathias. I'm hoping you do know her. She's pretty incredible, and she's also part of TEND. So that's our pathway. TEND is here to transform healthcare, the way we deliver healthcare, the way that people learn about who they are, the way that they engage and empower them to be healthier. We believe that New Zealanders should be the healthiest people in the world. So we're really excited about transforming that journey for patients and making sure that, just like Ranjna said, which is the core of the business for us as well, is that it should be patient-centric, it should be customer-centric, and delivering a platform both in person and through an app to enable that. So that's us, and thank you for having me here today.
Okay, thank you, Cecilia. I'm now going to ask a few questions and ask each of the panelists to give us their wisdom, expertise. While I'm asking questions, please feel free to post your own questions in Q&A, the Q&A box, so that at the end we can select some of those questions for the panel as well. Some of you have touched on this. Where I want to start is, why is it important for female entrepreneurs to be surrounded by other women, by experienced women, experienced other female entrepreneurs? Let's start with you, Celia, seeing as your face is still on my screen at the moment.
Exciting. Well, I'm glad that I got that question, because I think for us it's about role modeling. You know, I read, it was actually really random. I follow Reese Witherspoon on Instagram the other day, and she said, I'm not going to quite exactly what it said, but basically she said in class when she was little that, you know, she wanted to be president of the United States, and her female teacher responded to her, well, I'll be the first person to vote for you. You know, and we need to see that inspirational leadership. We need to have role models to aspire to, and even more importantly, we need to have them as part of our community. You know, Theresa has been a huge role model for me, and I'm so blessed to call her one of my best friends, because she frankly knows probably me and my husband better than most people do, better than our parents know us actually. And so having those inspirational role models and those leaders to look forward to gives people something to grasp onto. You know, I'm originally from Sweden, and it frustrates me every time I hear about how progressive Sweden is when we still haven't had a female prime minister. You know, that is not aspirational for a country. So we need women in leadership role and entrepreneur. We need women across all sectors, so that our young people, as they come through, have something to aspire to as well, and that they can see that those pathways are open. Okay.
Thanks, Celia. Vicki, would you like to respond?
Sure, I'll jump in on this one. I mean, I think this one is extremely important. 97% of people who write checks and funding funding entrepreneurs are men. And so it's not surprising, although it's annoying, that only 2.2% of venture capital goes to 51% of the population, is partly because women aren't in there investing. And, you know, we always hear these crazy things like, oh, I don't know, is that really a big problem? I'll have to ask my wife. You know, like crazy things. So I think one of the reasons of having women around supporting other women is we share a point of view, oftentimes, not always, we're not all alike, but we often share a point of view around problems. We see things that we experience. And so I think there's a lot of innovation out there that doesn't get picked up and doesn't get supported unless women are there to support those innovations. So for me, there's a bit of a lens. There's a gender lens opportunity here that is really important. And I mean, we've been living in a world that has been designed not really by women for a long time. And there's so many things I would change. Anyone else on this call change a bunch of things that you see out there, right? There's tons of stuff. Yeah, exactly. So just imagine what an incredible healthcare system is going to look like designed by Celia. Like, oh my God. So Cecilia. So this is yeah, right. It's going to look completely different. Like you come from this caring perspective. We even see what happens, you know, in your country. Don't know what your political views are, but this idea of like really understanding how important caring is in an economy. And it's just been completely left to the side. And we've seen this in COVID globally. So this is just a huge opportunity. When women come together to support each other, the world starts to look much different.
Yeah. Sue, I'll turn to you next, and you touched on this, but I'd be particularly keen for you to tell us all or relate all the experience you had. You left the SheEO Summit. It only had a certain number of activators at the summit, of course. Your experience of posting your request for capital on the community page, onto the wider SheEO community, and what happened after that, because that's so, people voting with their money, the antidote to men funding men is women to fund women. We do hold up half the sky. So please share your experience of when the rubber hit the road, how that actually happened for you.
I'd love to. Yeah, so for us, obviously at the summit, you pledged, I hope you don't mind me saying this, Theresa, you pledged a sum of money, which was amazing because, like I say, that gave confidence to everybody else. But I have to say, I stood up and asked for that 1.5, and I literally got a bunch of sticky notes given to me. And one of them was just a first name, a cell phone number, and 100,000. And that was just handed to me. And the woman who handed that to me followed through on that. So it's quite amazing just to stand up and ask for what you want and actually have people just immediately responding. But off the back of that, as you know, we approached Ice House, who became the lead investor. because we needed obviously one point of contact to put all this money through. What happened, they asked me to present at the showcase, and this again, it's really powerful. I stood up at the showcase, the Ice Angel showcase in Auckland at Spark Arena, and there were, I think, 1,100 investors in the room. Mainly, I would say 97%, Vicki, were men. It was a predominantly male crowd that I was pitching to. I pitched there, and I was just recently looking at the numbers for Archangels. Actually, if we take out the fund, the Showcase Fund and Archangels Fund, and the founder follow-on, 87.5% of the inbound investment was from women in the last round for Beany, 87.5%. And when you think that 97% of the investment community is men, that just shows why I couldn't raise in 2018 and why I could raise in 2019, because I'd lent into the female investment community via SheEO. It's transformational when women decide to invest in women.
Indeed, I couldn't agree more. Ranjna, your experience, please share your experience about this with us.
I think, you know, we all work in little silos, which is a pity. SheEO actually brought us all together because we have Company of Women that is for entrepreneur women, but they don't actually have any money. Then you have Archangels, you have Global Women. You know, if we put all these groups together on a regular basis like they do at Ice House, I think we would be able to get a lot done. And Vicki touched on something. Our point of difference is we do come from seeing gaps, and we do it with a caring way of, you know, approaching it, which sometimes comes across as a soft touch, which doesn't go well with men and it doesn't go well with business. But I think we can see that that soft touch does make a big difference when you're trying to develop a business. Bottom line might not be so good in the first few years, but I think our longitudinal look at things, we see the change. It may be something we've seen before that we want to fix. And we may not benefit from it, but we can see the younger would benefit from it. So, you know, in New Zealand, we're too small. We need to link up like we did today with, you know, senior business women, with SheEO, with Company of Women. We need all to support each other. You know, Sue had to present at 2-3 different forums. Why aren't we doing one big forum like we do at SheEO with another day to say, you know, let's present like Archangels do?
Okay, we'll take that on board. This session is being recorded, by the way, so we're going to capture this for all time. Obviously we're sticking with a gender lens, but really keen to get your perspective, each of you, on how you see the disruptive innovation and collective leadership, why that's so important now, and how you see that panning out in terms of the future landscape. So oh, actually, Vicki, now you've come back on screen, so we'll start with you.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Actually, I did want to follow up on what Ranjna said, and it sort of ties in here too. I was on a panel yesterday or the day before, and one of our ventures from Canada talked about how she's like, here was my pitch when I went out to start this company, which is called Got Care. We're going to pay healthcare workers more, and we're going to charge less. And she said, like, the worst pitch in the world for most investors, right? They're like, what do you mean? What are you doing? Reducing but what happened is she has very, very low turnover in terms of her staff, and she's delivering this incredible service, you know, and still has great margins. And I think this is to this point of sustainability. Like, we continue to burn out people and not pay attention to the long-term impact of a lot of our business models. And I think women, oftentimes, it's not only women, but predominantly women, come in with that lens of how to take care of people and how that becomes a competitive advantage over your other competitors when people don't do that. If you treat your customers well, if you treat your employees well. We have an entrepreneur in our network who did a phenomenal job at that. And she just she outperformed all of her competitors by taking care of her staff first. So I think it's not what we're taught in biz school. It's like maximize profits, work people to death. those models are all done now. And so I think there's just, if you're a woman, you have a huge competitive advantage right now, the way that we look at things and the way that we think long-term, and we think about taking care of people, that will win out at the end, from my perspective.
If I can just add on that, very true, Vicki. And, you know, we as women allow people to have babies. We allow them to look after not only our children, but our parents, as our job is. And, you know, I always thought it was one of my weaknesses in our company when we've got people that have been with us 30, 35 years, and they started when we were little. And they haven't grown with the job, but what they do is really, really good and important. And then, you know, to what I say is my success is when you want your husband to come and work, or you want your child to come and work for us. And we don't see as big, you know, we don't think that's wrong to have family members working with us. We see it as a strength, that it's a success for us. So, you know, it's a different way of looking at things.
Cecilia, your comments on this topic?
Yeah, I mean, like, for me, just talking to what Ranjna has talked about, I think for so long have we apologized for who we are, and I still see women rushing out at 4:30, 5:30 out of corporates and trying to dash home to do kids and dinner and sit in rush hour traffic. And I really hope that if COVID brings us something, it changes the way that we think and how we work, because for us, you know, back in the days before we had kids, I probably also didn't understand how you want to be present for both. You want to be able to be there with your kids, but you also want to be able to succeed at work. And so I think female disruption in that space, being able to attract talent who, you know, I've got one of my team on the list that I've just spotted. Claire, I'm going to pick on you straight away here, but I've got this amazing lady, Claire Rush. You can all look her up later, but please don't try to steal her, who's our head of talent over at Tend. And she reached out to me during COVID, and she's got 2 kids. I think she's got 2 under 3, basically. And she said, look, I'm not really going back into a full-time job, but I'd love to work with Tend. How can I be of service to you? And I think Claire works for us 12 hours per week, but she juggles it around her kids and her life. And Claire is like a full-time, the way that she works is so efficient, and how women are in that environment is totally different. And so, you know, I find that I think female disruption, the way that we work, the way that we find, you know, ways to prioritize our life and our family and juggle it all is really important. And I think that we've got to change the way that the sentiment has been for so long, that the only way that you can be successful is, and Theresa would talk to this in terms of telecom days, you've got to be there first, 7 a.m., got to be the last, you know, and that doesn't work. I don't think that brings happiness and sustainability. And indeed, neither OPL Link nor My Food Bag or Tend has ever been built like that. And our companies have been incredibly successful and profitable, because there's no shame in profit. I actually really, really love profit, because profitability in our company has enabled us to, in My Food Bag, offer things like 20 weeks of paid parental leave to our staff, you know, and that's something that we aspire to do with Tend as well. We want to make our business profitable, because profitability for us means being able to give back more and do more things for our team and our community, and that excites me. I'm not sure if that quite answered the question, T, but you know.
It's great, Sec. So, Beany.
Yeah, this is highly relatable to me. I guess when I started Beany, I wanted to basically halve accounting fees for small business. And so that was a really important thing to, like, you know, Vicki talking about, you know, actually lowering the cost of a service. But the other side of it, I wanted to pay my people at least to achieve gender pay parity. That was incredibly important to me in my profession. And famously, one of the main reasons why I started Beany, I was actually working for a chartered accountant at the time, and I wanted to work only 30 hours a week, not 40. And he said that was not a productive use of the workstation. And I know, right? So my skill was less than that computer and the desk. And I realized then that I was going to change that model, and that was not working for me. And it wasn't working for all the people who came to work for Beany. So we've our top 2 accountants have 9 children between the 2 of them, and it works perfectly well. They do what they do. I don't have to manage them. I don't have to worry about them. We're all on the same page. We're all trying to do the same thing for our clients. So it works beautifully. Collective leadership for women, I think, is kind of what we do. We don't really need to think about it too much. It's just inherent.
Okay, I'd just like to encourage people again to post in the Q&A, because there's some comments in the Q&A chat, but I actually can't see any questions. So I will just carry on asking questions.
There's a question. There is one question on imposter syndrome. I think that I saw before. Someone asked a question, I think it disappeared, about imposter syndrome and how to tackle with confidence.
Okay. Well, we're not going to... I'm not sure, have you ever had imposter syndrome, Cecilia?
Oh, honestly, for the first, I refused to go use the term entrepreneur for a really long time because I didn't feel like I deserved it. And it was just when other people start calling you entrepreneur, even just like Theresa, when she introduced me as a serial entrepreneur, I still feel a bit of like flutter going on. You know, you feel like you don't quite belong. So yes, I do sometimes suffer from it still. And I think, you know, you just, you've got to embrace it. You know, you've got to embrace who you are and what you do and be proud of it. But I think many still do. And I saw Ranjna up in the corner as well going, yeah, I totally relate to that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm going to throw to Vicki first because I know she has a story about this when she sold down her company, ended up listing at the Canadian Stock Exchange. So Vicki, do you want to answer about imposter syndrome, how to deal with it? And then I'll go back to Raj.
Just super painful. So, you know, part of the thing that I really struggled with was I was in my early 30s. A group of bankers came to us and wanted to take us public. And we had to negotiate what that was going to look like. And everything I brought up that was so unique about us, they'd be like, that's intangible, doesn't fit on the balance sheet. That's over and over. And I couldn't find language to say, but then why are you here, right? Why are you even here? You came here because it was so unique. And we went through this whole process. And by the end of it, they were so frustrated with the way that I talked, the way that I ran things. They couldn't understand what I was saying. And they're just like, we don't want you to be the CEO of this public company. We want him to be. And it was so hard for me. And I kept thinking I was doing something wrong because I wasn't surrounded by people who had my back, who encouraged me to be who I was. And that was one of the first real, like, kind of learning moments for me where I realized I needed to be very careful about who I surrounded myself with and make sure I had people who were lifting me up, because I don't know about the rest of you, but I just had a million cuts of all the things that are wrong with me. Thank you very much. I've got a big long list from everybody else of everything you're not doing right, Vicki Saunders. And so it took me a long time to rebuild my confidence after that, because there was such a model of, you know, what it means to be a leader. And I didn't look like that. I didn't look like you're supposed to look, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I can tell you no one likes female blondes either. They're not wildly popular for leadership, gotta say.
Ranjna.
I think, you know, yes, Cecilia, entrepreneur, you know, with the EY awards, it's when they kept saying, no, you have to say I. And I said, which idiot believes it's I? I have a team of 1,000 people and I'm the mouthpiece, you know, with Gandhi Nivas. It's the counseling service and it's the police that's putting this program together. But I think, you know, we all have that imposter syndrome, and how we get over it, mostly it's by the support of people around us that say, yes, you may feel like an imposter, but you've been an enabler. And I quite often say to my, all I am is a conductor, and I'm not educated in the economics of things, but I know, as we say, get shit done. So, you know, we know how to direct whatever needs doing. We balance, you know, we balance our children, we balance our grandchildren, we balance our parents with a job. You know, so we are capable of doing so much that in a man's world, it's just taken for granted. But if they had to do it, I'm sure they'd come up, if they even have to do it, you know, 20% of the time, they would come up with some really good ideas, but they have it cushy. And I think that's our strength. We have to do it, so we get it done. And I think everyone in their own way is an entrepreneur, even though we don't like saying it. We feel like imposters. I still, to this date, I hate speaking, but I will not turn down any offer, because women don't get asked and ethnic women get asked even less. So, you know, my first few sentences is like I'm about to cry. Sue, I do it all the time, don't worry. But, you know, you can't, you do have to step up, and we do step up in our own individual ways.
And I'm just going to stick with you for a bit, Ranjna, because we're getting good questions now. And the one question is a bit on the topic you're on, which is, how do women look after themselves, their families, as they build their businesses? you know, and you're just sort of touching on that. So what do you do to look after yourself, balancing, as you say, the parents, the children, the businesses, the non-profit? What lessons have you learned? How do you do it?
You don't feel guilty. You know, you can't be everything to everyone. And we prioritize. You know, we get up in the morning and we know we cook breakfast, make lunches, get the kids. We do all those things. So you have to prioritize and you don't feel guilty. If you haven't been able to call your mum today, but you did it yesterday, you know, it's no big deal. Yes, you know, it's nice to call your mum every day, but mum's got to understand as well that you're doing something. We've just got to stop feeling guilty, and we can't do everything. We will manage the best we can. We prioritize. If mum's sick, we ring twice a day. If our grandkids are sick, we go out of our way. You know, we have to prioritize. And I see another question there is, how do you grow it big? Well, with me, Cecilia is the entrepreneur. Sorry, Cecilia. She grows things. I just had something and I fixed it and made it bigger. With Gandhi Nivas, I saw a problem. I don't have those competencies. I put people together, and we have that capability. And as you get to my age, you have more links. You can call on the likes of Cecilia or Theresa to say, can you do this for me? And women seldom say no. You know, last week I was asked twice by 2 unknown people to do something for them, and I turn up at their apartment. Now, you know, who does that? We do it because a woman has asked. I want to interview you so I can inspire unknown women. Okay, I'll come and do it for you. You know, and we'll prioritize that. At my age, I prioritize that more than a business meeting.
Thanks, Ranjna. Celia, over to you. What do you do to look after yourself, keep yourself sane, and how have you scaled your businesses?
Well, I think Theresa would be the first person to say that there were definitely periods where I was really shit at prioritizing myself. So I've had periods where we've kind of just eaten, slept, kids, relationship, and work, and that's been okay in periods. It's been, you know, manageable. And I think you have to know what your priorities are and be really clear on that. And so for us, it's been, we've always really prioritized our family. So we eat breakfast together. We always eat dinner together. And our children, while we're very busy people, I think my son could count on, you know, one hand, how many times that we missed being there at bedtime or bath time for his first 3 years, right? We were often always there. You know, and that was a priority for both of us. I've got better with time, and just like Ranjna says, you've got to ask for help, and you've got to lean into people and actually be prepared to accept their help as well. I think I've also had to swallow that I can't do everything. So, you know, I've been able to have really amazing help at home. I also saw another question in regards to the fact that women do something like 7 more years of housework than what men do. I just refuse to accept that. My husband is incredibly well trained, and he's prepared to do, you know, with our children. Theresa, I think, was the first person to turn around and say to us that with our son, when he was little, he didn't have a preference between James and me. You know, he was quite equally happy to go to either mummy or daddy because he had us equally. He's expected that. So I think we have to be better at advocating for ourselves. I think we have to be better at asking for help and also better at taking help. I've got an amazing housekeeper nowadays in the fortunate position that we're now in, who helps me run our life. And there was a really long period where I would feel incredibly guilty about that. But there's just no way that I can cope with everything that I do in the day, and then our children and husband and businesses, and try to still do everything at home too. So I guess that's my honest answer. But also there have been periods where I have been incredibly crap at it. So, yeah.
What do you do to keep yourself in balanced while you've got your businesses, and how are you scaling?
Yeah, for me, I think I came from a very traditional background, and so I have been retrained by my husband Louis to actually understand that he co-parents with me and he co-manages the house with me, and I think he's quite a transformational man, and so it's sometimes good to just honour that as well. So what he taught me was that he is equally responsible for everything in the home and equally responsible for our children. And that's been an incredibly valuable lesson and has enabled me to have the energy to actually grow businesses.
Yeah.
What I find really interesting now is, so I'm looking around at my workforce of predominantly, you know, these are very highly experienced, professional, qualified women who are in their homes with their children. They're choosing to work for Beany so they can be at home with their children. That's why they work for us. But they do sometimes fall into the trap of doing thinking they're responsible for all the childcare and all the home management, as well as working sometimes full-time for Beany. And through COVID, I really noticed how unequal some of their lives were. So for me, I felt some responsibility to just gently point out that they have another parent in the house to help them with the children and to help them with the management of the home. And I think it's a tough conversation to have, but we sort of have to try to gently let them see what is happening. Famously, I've had a lot of my accountants who have been pushed out of their home office because their husband was home working now through COVID. So they are now beaming in from the hallways and bedrooms. So they have been displaced from their workstation. So I just try to point these things out.
And Vicki, finally on this, sorry, is that you, Ranjna?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't answer your question. Sorry, I don't prioritize well. And when you're working in your own business, there is no work-life balance. But you have to get into a space where you enjoy what you're doing, and then it's not a burden. If you hate what you're doing, it's work. But if you enjoy what you're doing, it becomes really easy to look after yourself.
Thanks, Ranjna. And Vicki, just hear from you on this, and then there's another question in the chat I'm going to go to.
Right, just super quickly, I mean, I really do think that finding a partner finding a good partner that can help you is a huge part of the success, I think, too, right? I mean, if you have somebody who doesn't understand that what matters to you, isn't supportive of that, isn't in competition with you, like it's very, very hard to do all of this no matter what. And if you have that extra weight that you have to pull behind you or deal with on a regular basis, that's a challenge. So for any of the young ones out there who haven't yet picked a mate, be very, very specific about what you're looking for, because it will impact how you get, what you create in your life.
Okay, there's a question come through about how should women think about investment and support now in the middle of the COVID pandemic? What would be your advice for, other than obviously join SheEO, which is I'll stick with you, Vicki, because you're on screen.
Yeah. Well, so for me, all of this is about relationships. It's not that different during COVID than any other time. Finding the capital that you need on the terms that you want that matches your values is absolutely critical. All money comes at a cost with rules attached to it. And I think the best way to find the right kind of capital and support at any time is to get into relationship with people and see who fits with what you're trying to do. That's just really important. I think people always leave that off the thing and they're like, oh, who funds this sector? I'm like, no, not just the sector, but like the values that you have and are going to get behind you. That's really important.
Yeah. Okay. Sue, have you got anything to add to that?
I think I've been doing a lot of sort of just chatting to people around what's happening in the investment community at the moment, sort of coming out of COVID-19. And I think sort of moving into a rather sort of hard financial kind of mindset for a second, I do think there's a lot of money out there, but I also think it's kind of looking for bargains. So I think for anybody who's looking to raise money at the moment, they should probably resist the temptation to be undervalued in this market. I don't think there's any reason to undervalue your company right now.
That sounds like a good segue to Celia, because we were on a call about this just yesterday, Cec?
Yes. Hey, by the way, if anyone saw me disappearing, it was literally just to go and deal with my washing. So it's a multitasking, right? The washing machine is beeping in the background, so that was frustrating me. Yeah, Teddy, sorry, where were we?
The question is, what's your best advice for women looking for investment and support at this time in the middle of this pandemic?
Ask for it. Like, I mean, we have to get out there and just simply ask for it and be brave and be bold. And also don't ask for too little and don't undersell yourself or your business. Again and again, I see men asking, and in particular, I mean, like I get so many investment decks across my desk. And for some reason, the investment decks I get from male-led companies often are totally overinflated and value their businesses incredibly highly. And women totally underestimate the value of their businesses. So it's just endemic. I see it all the time, almost every day, and it frustrates the heck out of me. So, you need to ask for what you actually need and actually be brave around that, be bold, be articulate, take action. There is actually quite a lot of money floating around right now. And if you've got a really solid business, there are people looking to deploy cash into other areas because term deposits are crap. And also, you know, people are really worried about the capital markets. So people are looking at, you know, the share market. Everyone's going, is it going to do a W? What's going to happen? You know, do we have enough, you know, is the stimulus package going to last? You know, so there's real nerves there. So if you've got a really highly performing private enterprise that is really thriving during COVID or being stable, then that's a really good place for people to deploy cash right now. So I would be brave about that. And I'd ask, you know, make sure that the ask that you have is brave and bold.
Right, okay. So we're at 5:02, so we're going to do the final wrap session now, which is, I'm going to ask each of you to give your best advice for the women on this call. Now, the mixture of women on this call is a mixture of corporate women and entrepreneurs, and most corporates are trying to be more entrepreneurial. So over to you, how you focus your answer. But what's your best advice for the women on the call in their businesses and in their lives, starting with you, Sec?
It's harsh to go first, isn't it? So I would just want to actually get a reminder out there to make sure we take care of ourselves. So that's my first recommendation. So take care of yourself, because if you can't take care of yourself, if you're not taking care of yourself, then you can't take care of others. And actually makes it really hard to perform in your work. So take care of yourself, take action, you know, be brave and be bold, and optimism. You know, we need to be optimistic about the future. We need to be looking at the opportunities and not just the pitfalls ahead. So make sure we focus on the opportunities and the positive challenges ahead.
Okay. Ranjna.
Yeah, that's great, Cecilia. I think several of the things have come up, and what Sue said, pick the right partner. Men are intimidated very easily. And if you shine more than they do, you're setting yourself up for disaster. Believe in yourself and think outside the square. Just because no one else hasn't done it doesn't mean it can't be done. Always think creatively. We do look at solution-based things. So have trust in yourself, and you'll achieve.
Yeah. Okay. Sue.
At the end of 2018, when I had failed to raise money, I felt really down in the dumps and I felt quite lonely. And so I reached out to a really good friend of mine, Andy Blair, who actually now is the president of the World Geothermal Congress. So she manages geothermal industry globally. So pretty high-powered chick. And I said, I'm lonely. Can we start a group of women leaders who we can just meet together and kind of prop each other up? And we did that. So we have a group of 7 women, all from completely different backgrounds: audiology, like a global level audiologist, geothermal, accounting services, Chloe Walker, who's just been named as a venture finalist for the Robor. So amazing group of women. And they basically, you can post anything in that chat, and if it's something good, they'll cheer for you. And if it's something bad, there'll be a virtual hug there for you. And I think that's the best piece of advice. Build your team. Build a team of supporters who are kind of always on your side no matter what.
Nice. And I'll just jump in for the very end.
I'm going to say a bit about that.
Yeah.
Vicki, you go.
Yeah, I'll just build on that even more, which is, you know, I think isolation is the enemy. Isolating yourself, thinking you have to do it on your own, is like the biggest lie that's out there that a lot of us are conditioned with. And so it is so much harder to achieve what you want to achieve by yourself. So get into a community of people that lift you up and support you. It's just, you know, when you're sitting there and you're like, I think this is a good idea. And people are like, you're great. It's amazing. Go do it. All of that. Sometimes we just need a hug. We just need a nudge and a support. And that is the one thing I would change in my life. There's not much I would change, but one thing, I would have gotten into a community of my tribe a lot earlier.
Yeah. Okay, so my words on this are, do what you love. I'm just going to pick up from what Ranjna said. And some of us were blessed to know early on what we loved. And some of us took longer, into our 20s, to figure it out, or 30s or 40s. It doesn't matter. So find out and do what you love. Life is a long time. You've got time to make mistakes or experiment before you get on the path of what is really your best self. Once you've found what you love, surround yourself with your tribe, that want to hang out with the people who support life partner. And accept that every life has ups and downs. No one ever has a whole bed of roses, even if it looks like it from the outside. And the challenges come in different ways: financial, emotional, health, and some of it is your own mistakes, and some of it is things that were outside your control. And trying to be the same person, whether life is going up or whether it's going down for you at the moment, is actually one of life's great skills. And that's how you end up a wise woman. That's how you end up gracious. And also, if you choose to live in New Zealand, which is a small country, you have to understand that you have to be thinking long term, because the person that you're horrible to tomorrow, can you be your boss next month, or your brother-in-law? So we live in, you actually have to think in community. There is really no option for a long-term, sustainable, happy life. And finally, a pitch to join SheEO. You know, you might want to join this community. It's easy. Go to the website SheEO.world. We have a weekly call that is full of this sort of dose of inspiration, and you can get your ventures funded, you can get your businesses supported, or you just, if you've got no time, because Kiwi women are and will be changing the world post this pandemic. You know, Jacinda is all of us. Jacinda is all of us. This is a time of female leadership in the world, and New Zealand is a place where female leadership. So thank you all for joining us this morning. Thank you for everything you do in your communities, your families, as part of SheEO, as part of Global Women. As Russ said, let's figure out how, to go forward in New Zealand, we can use our collective energy as women and the world, co-create the world we want. Thank you all very much. Kia ora, have a good day.